Imagine this scenario and really try to feel the pressure here. You're consenting a patient for an urgent, necessary procedure. It's complex, it requires a real understanding of the risks. But here's the thing the patient speaks limited English and has, well, documented low health literacy. So going ahead right now feels fundamentally unsafe because you just can't guarantee informed consent. But delaying the procedure, that feels harmful to their clinical outcome. You're completely stuck between two competing professional duties. What's the immediate ethical and professional action you take? Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking a whole stack of UK medical standards, official guidance, and high-stakes exam logic, the kind you find in SJT preparation, to simplify one critical concept that often gets confused in the heat of the moment. And that concept is equitable care. Our mission today is to give you a shortcut, really, to the highest scoring response every single time. The core truth we need to unpack is this. The professional standard demands you move beyond treating everyone the same way. The path to safety and, frankly, legal consent requires you to actively remove barriers. So let's unpack this immediately. We tend to use equality and equity interchangeably in daily life, but their clinical differences are massive, right?
Yeah.
And confusing them risks patient safety. Can you clarify that core distinction for us right out of the gate?
Yeah, absolutely. It's probably the single most important mindset shift you need to make when you're approaching any scenario that involves communication or access barriers.
Yeah.
See, treating people equally means providing the same resources to everyone. But treating people equitably means tailoring the support to remove specific barriers, making sure the care is, reachable, understandable, and acceptable for that individual.
Okay, so it's about the outcome, not the input.
Exactly. Think of it this way. Equality would be giving every single patient a 5-minute appointment slot. Equity, on the other hand, recognizes that a patient with complex needs, maybe someone who needs BSL interpretation, well, they're going to need a 30-minute slot and a quiet room to get to the exact same level of safe consent as the patient who only needed 5 minutes.
So the goal isn't sameness. It's about fair outcomes and safety, regardless of where the patient's starting from. I wonder, though, how often professionals miss that distinction, especially when time is a huge factor.
It happens all the time, and that's why this is such a high-yield topic for exams. If you adopt that equality mindset, you immediately start to spot the barriers. And when barriers are left unremoved, whether it's a lack of accessible formats or a language barrier, they lead directly to unsafe decisions, missed care, and, potential medico-legal trouble.
Mm-hmm.
This matters so much because it ties directly into your duties under the General Medical Council, the GMC, the professional expectation, and the logic of high-stakes testing. It rewards you for identifying those barriers proactively, making reasonable adjustments immediately, and then documenting the needs clearly for continuity across the whole team.
Right.
It's about meeting your duty to communicate effectively and fairly, not just, kindly.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. So we're moving from an abstract idea to a mandatory practical duty. We know the GMC requires us to communicate effectively, but what are the specific UK standards that tell us how we have to make these adjustments?
Okay, so we need to look at 3 main areas that are, well, they're mandatory for NHS providers. First up, there's a specific framework for meeting communication needs. It's called the Accessible Information Standard, or AIS.
The AIS sounds quite technical. What's the practical takeaway for the doctor in that urgent consent scenario we started with?
The takeaway is that it mandates continuity. The AIS sets out 5 core professional requirements, 5 things you must do.
5 things. Okay,
You have to identify the communication need. So, do they need BSL? Easy read. An interpreter. Then you have to record it, flag it visibly in their notes, meet the need, and then finally review if the adjustment actually worked.
And I guess that flagging part is the key to continuity, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Mm.
If you identify that the patient needs a professional interpreter, but you fail to flag it, the next team member, the nurse taking bloods, or the specialist booking the follow-up, they're going to miss it. You break the chain of continuity, and you risk that patient having another unsafe interaction.
So AIS makes sure the patient gets the right tool, like an accessible format or an interpreter, and that everyone on the team knows about it. But what standards govern the actual process, how we talk about treatment?
That's where NICE, the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence, comes in. We have NICE Guideline CG-138, which is all about the patient experience and coordinating care. But the really critical one you have to know is NICE Guideline NG-197.
Okay, NG-197.
NG-197 mandates that we embed shared decision-making in every single interaction. That means using things like decision aids, clearly communicating risks and benefits in a way people can actually understand, and really moving away from that paternalistic sort of doctor knows best approach.
So the adjustment isn't just about providing an interpreter, it's about making sure the dialogue itself respects their preference and their literacy level.
Precise.
And just to connect this back to the bigger picture, which I think really helps understand the why behind all this, I know the sources say that ICBs and trusts have clear legal duties around equality and health inequalities. Is that why, when we make these adjustments, we're not just being helpful, but we're actually upholding a wider legal mandate?
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
You are not just being kind, you are delivering on the legal duty of the entire healthcare system. And that legal mandate is what justifies you demanding an immediate, proportionate adjustment, like an urgent professional interpreter, even if it temporarily strains resources. Providing equitable care is a systemic requirement.
Which brings us right back to our opening scenario. The patient is non-English speaking, the procedure is urgent, we have all these mandatory duties from the GMC, AIS, MICE. We need a step-by-step action plan. What's the clear first, next, last framework we should be following?
Okay, so the framework moves you from identifying the danger to mitigating it and then making sure it doesn't happen again. Step 1, identify and validate barriers. The crucial first move is to ask proactively. Never assume.
Never.
You need to ask about language, format preferences, disability, even external things like transport or carrying responsibilities. A really good model phrase to use is something like, what would help you understand and attend today?
So don't assume, ask and validate the barrier. Got it.
Correct. Step 2, make immediate, reasonable adjustments. And this is where the tension really hits. You must arrange a professional interpreter immediately, and I mean not a family member. You must provide easy-read materials or BSL support or adapt the setting, maybe a longer appointment, a quiet room. The adjustment has to be proportionate to the urgency.
Okay, can I just pause you right there?
Of course.
Because this feels like the common dilemma, right? This is the exact pressure point that exam writers just love to test.
Yeah.
If I'm on a busy ward and the procedure is urgent, let's say a potentially life-saving operation in the next hour, isn't getting the patient's daughter to translate better than a 3-hour delay waiting for a remote professional interpreter? Realistically, time matters.
That is the perfect question, and it completely encapsulates the SJT ranking logic. The priority must always be safety and valid consent.
Right.
Using a family member, especially for something sensitive or complex like consent, is incredibly high risk. It risks coercion, misinterpretation of technical terms, and it can actually invalidate the entire consent process legally.
So it's a false economy, basically.
A huge one. Therefore, the professional answer is always to prioritize the safe process over the speedy but unsafe option. You book the professional interpreter, even if it introduces a small manageable delay, and you manage the clinical risk during that delay. The safest action is the one that prioritizes the professional adjustment.
Safety over speed when it comes to consent validity.
Yeah.
Got it. What's step 3?
Step 3, shared decisions and confirm true understanding. So you have to confirm that the adjustment you made actually worked. This means using decision aids and, critically, using the teach-back method. You ask the patient to explain the plan, the risks, the benefits, back to you in their own words. If they can't explain the plan, they haven't consented safely, it doesn't matter how great your interpreter was.
That's a key point. And step 4?
Step 4, coordinate and safety net. Make sure follow-up care is also accessible. Liaise with community teams, the GP, provide really clear safety netting instructions, and make sure any future communication needs are already sorted.
Right. And finally?
Step 5, document flags. This closes the loop. It ensures continuity. You record the patient's needs in a visible way. These are the AIS flags, so the whole system knows what support is needed. A model phrase to just commit to memory is, I'll arrange a professional interpreter and mark this clearly in your record so it's not missed by the next team.
That structure is incredibly clear. It starts with proactive action, and it ends with systemic documentation. And for anyone listening, the sources provide some fantastic memory hooks to help you recall this framework under pressure. We've got the high-level one called Equalise. This is a great way to quickly check off the whole process. It's explore barriers, quality info, understand. With Teachback, adjust link services, identify and flag safety net, and evaluate.
And if you need a quicker one, specifically for documentation and resources, there's Flag IT. That helps you focus on those mandatory AI's requirements. Flag needs language, access to guidance, like decision aids, interpreter and time. These are just so high yield because they link directly to the duties we were just talking about.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me, and often the most difficult part: avoiding the traps. When a doctor is tired, rushed, certain actions just feel right or easy, but they violate these standards and they score really poorly. What are the common pitfalls we have to avoid?
Okay, first, let's just hammer home the red flags that demand immediate intervention. If you see a language barrier for consent, you must book a professional interpreter now.
Mm.
End of story. If there's no accessible format for a patient with a known visual impairment, you have to provide easy read or audio and document the AIS flags. These are completely non-negotiable.
And what about those decoy answers, the ones that look tempting but are just wrong?
The first major trap, and we've touched on this, is asking family or a teenager to interpret sensitive issues. It's so appealing because it's fast and convenient.
Mm-hmm.
But it fails because, one, it's not AIS compliant. Two, it risks severe misinterpretation of technical terms like anaphylaxis or intubation.
Yeah.
And three, critically, it risks coercion, especially if the family member has their own agenda. The professional interpreter requirement is absolute.
Right. What's the next trap?
The second one is giving the same standard English leaflet and just proceeding maybe with a few gestures and a nod.
The get on with it approach.
Exactly. The trap here is the desire to just get on with it. But it completely ignores the barrier you've identified, it breaches your duty to communicate, and it risks unsafe consent. A standard leaflet is useless if the patient can't read English.
And what about using resource limitations as an excuse?
That's the third common trap. Unnecessary delay. This is where you say you'll rebook them weeks later just because staff are limited today. The adjustment has to be reasonable and timely, especially when it's urgent. A minor, reasonable delay to get an interpreter is safe. A significant, unnecessary delay to avoid making an adjustment. That's a failure of timely care.
And the fourth one.
The fourth trap, and this one tests your leadership, is declining adjustments because of local policy or cost. This is a major failure. Remember what we said earlier, the legal duties that ICBs and trusts have always supersede a local poorly written policy. If a policy stops you from providing equitable care, your duty is to challenge that policy, not follow it blindly.
That really crystallizes the ranking logic for me. The highest score is always the one that provides the adjustment now and documents the needs for the future. It supersedes proceeding without confirmed understanding or delaying care unnecessarily. The action that enables valid, safe consent today while ensuring continuity tomorrow is always the winner.
Exactly right. For example, if you see a patient with suspected delirium who can't consent, just giving them a standard leaflet is a very poor answer. But waiting until tomorrow morning when they might be less confused and making sure you arrange for a relative or an advocate to be there, that's the highest score because you're prioritizing safety and valid decision-making above all else.
That distinction, that safety and systemic continuity are the core professional duties, that really is the key takeaway from this deep dive.
To pull everything we've covered together, I want to leave you with 3 actionable key takeaways. 3 things that should govern every decision you make in this area.
Go for it.
First, equity demands tailored support to proactively remove barriers. You have to move beyond standardized treatment to ensure fair outcomes. Second, professional interpreters and accessible formats are necessary to enable valid, safe consent and to meet legal standards. Never, ever rely on family or friends for clinical interpreting. And third, use the teach-back method to confirm true understanding and, crucially, record the patient's communication needs using AI's flags. That ensures continuity across the entire healthcare system.
This knowledge is so foundational. It's not just about passing a selection exam. It's about making sure every decision you make respects the patient's unique context and maximizes safety from day one. It's about being an effective, ethical practitioner.
And that leads me to a final provocative thought for you to consider. If ICBs and trusts have clear legal duties to address health inequalities in how they design services, which means shifting resources around, how should this mandated focus on equity inform the resources you demand or the services you help design? It's not just your duty to respond to barriers in your clinic room, but maybe also to demand the systemic change that prevents them from appearing in the first place.
That is the ultimate goal of truly equitable care. We highly recommend checking out pastthemsra.com for more resources on this and other high-yield decision-making topics. Thank you for joining us for the deep dive. We'll catch you next time.